Right, welcome to this afternoon's webinar. Scott Weber, I'm going to hand it off to you to get started.
Hey, good afternoon, maybe good morning for some of you. Thank you all for joining us today for our first Fireside chat. I'm Scott Weber, the Vice President of Cloud Solutions at EagleDream Technologies, and we're hoping that the Fireside chat today will be informative for everybody in attendance. Today, we're going to focus on navigating and quantifying the value of running Windows on AWS. This is something that we have a lot of experience helping our customers with. I'm thrilled today that Clark Fancher from AWS is here to help lead our discussion. And we also have a good friend and EagleDream customer, Chris Cevallos from Cross River Bank, where we happen to be doing an OLA right now. Our format today is going to be a roundtable discussion, where Clark and I will be interviewing Chris around his experience running Windows and looking at migrating Windows workloads into AWS. If you're currently running Windows on premises today or in AWS today, we think that this session should be beneficial to you. And we're hoping that you'll get some value from the discussion that's going to happen. As I mentioned before, Chris and Cross River Bank right now are in the midst of doing an optimization and licensing assessment with us in AWS. This is called an OLA assessment. And the goal of the OLA is to help uncover what a customer actually has in their environment on premises today and what it would look like to move that workload into AWS. And typically, we're finding customers are able to save at least 30% and sometimes up to 50 and 60% by moving their workloads out of an on-premise environment and running Windows in AWS. We'll be digging deeper into Chris's experience going through this process as we go through this session today. Before we get in too deep though, a couple things. We want to make sure that you guys are involved in the conversation. Again, this is supposed to be a fireside chat. So we encourage you to ask questions either using the chat panel or by raising your hand. Raise your hand. Courtney and a few of the other moderators will work with you to get your mic unmuted so you can ask the question, or just pop it into the Q&A and they'll field it and we'll do our best to answer it as we go through. So now that we've covered, the interaction today, let's take a look at what is lined up on the agenda for today. First, we're going to start out with introductions. Then we'll have Chris give a brief overview of Cross River Bank and where they're at. And then we'll dive into our fireside discussion. And at the end, we're going to open it up to Q&A in general for any of the three participants today. Let's do some introductions real quick. I'll go first. As I mentioned before, I'm Scott Weber. I'm the Vice President of Cloud Solutions at EagleDream Technologies. In my role, I help our customers define their specific AWS Cloud Journey. Everything from investigations with things like OLA assessment to helping them understand security and compliance in the cloud, then transitioning that to our cloud engineering and application development teams to help the customer actually start to move into the cloud. Let me give you a brief introduction to EagleDream Technologies for those of you that don't know who we are. We're the premier cloud native transformation company in North America. Our mission is to educate, enable, and empower companies to redefine what's possible with technology. We're a premier AWS consulting partner, one of 45 in North America, and we're also one of the top Windows modernization partners in North America. And in Windows modernization, we're helping customers move beyond just operating on top of Windows and SQL Server. How can we get them to move their .NET applications into Linux containers? And I think that's something Chris might touch on, as it's something we're helping with Cross River with. How do we help customers move beyond SQL Server to open source databases? But enough about us. We're really excited about this opportunity today. So Clark, why don't I turn it over to you to give us a little bit of, our attendees a little bit of your background.
Perfect. Hey everybody, my name is Clark Fancher. I am the product manager for the optimization and licensing assessment, or OLA. I've been with Amazon Web Services for just over 4 years now, and I've been focused on Windows workloads for the last 2 years and change. And I'm really here because many of our customers have found a lot of value in the OLA in terms of helping them make educated migration decisions around their Windows workloads. And I really want to help you understand that value proposition and see if it's something that's going to make sense for your organization.
Great. Thanks, Clark. Chris, how about a brief introduction from you?
Hi, my name is Chris Cevallos. I'm a senior engineer at Cross River Bank. I'm also head of infrastructure. Cross River Bank is a community bank with a technology presence that working with Scott and Clark on helping to enable our infrastructure to be more strategic.
Okay. And Chris, can you give a little background on Cross River Bank? Let us know,
Sure.
let the audience know a little bit more about what you guys are doing.
Sure. So we're a traditional community bank, but we're very technology forward. Where I'll pivot off to one of our greatest accomplishments right now is we've actually are the third or the fourth largest PPP provider in the country. And we've managed to build out that environment and scale out. And even a feather to our accomplishment is how we leverage our partners with our technology stack to be able to do marketplace lending.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Chris. So let's really start to dive in. As I mentioned in the beginning, Chris, you and your team have engaged with us to, help your team overall with an AWS Cloud Journey, and help you understand what was going on in your data center. So, Chris, can you give us, a little bit more information on, what you guys were hoping to gain from doing the OLA, and where you are in the process?
So we started to think about, I guess, a cloud strategy for the bank because we've come into a certain obstacle where it's hard to scale at the demand of what our business is requiring. And some of the challenges we were facing was provisioning of hardware equipment into our data center in a much robust and timely fashion, and it was taking longer for us to scale out that infrastructure. So in the process, we started reviewing different cloud vendors, and we felt that it was very strategic for us to connect with AWS. And in connecting with AWS, we were introduced to EagleDream. And then EagleDream has done this OLA process multiple times, and we could leverage off their experience. And right now, we're in the process of our OLA and being able to scale out our infrastructure into the AWS platform.
Great. Thanks for that, Chris. You touched on a few things that are sort of the constraints that you have today. Is the hope that the OLA process is going to give you some guideposts to move forward to, maybe help be able to resolve some of those issues?
Yeah. In the process of the OLA, it brought into light stuff that we were aware of, but not really aware of until we finally started the process. And by going through, our licensing from Microsoft, going through our licensing, even at the desktop side, it created a focus. So we started focusing on where can we reduce costs, where we could be more effective in our growth. And we're noticing that that we can leverage the OLA to gives us a better business use case to be able to help us with our cloud journey.
Awesome. So, Clark, would you like to ask Chris some questions?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And just kind of before jumping into the questions with Chris, I want to flesh out a little bit more about what the optimization and licensing assessment, or OLA, really is. So it's a framework including tooling, like software tooling. We have first-party tooling like Migration Evaluator, which is an AWS service, as well as third-party tooling like Cloudimize and CloudChomp. So it's a framework that includes that tooling, as well as experts from partners like EagleDream, as well as sales specialists from AWS to help you build optimized cost models of your workloads running in AWS. And these cost models are optimized across two dimensions. There's the right-sized instance recommendations, or you can think of it as kind of the compute dimension,
Right.
as well as the licensing specific dimension. So this is where we can get into specific optimizations like reducing the number of cores that you need to license. So it's all about building a strategy based on existing licensing entitlements that your organization might have today with Microsoft, and then modeling these things out in AWS to make sure that you have the most cost optimal models while still maintaining performance of those workloads. So the OLA, it's at the end of the day, it's an output that helps you make a informed migration decision for not only your Windows workloads, but also Linux workloads as well. But it's all about giving you that data. It's all about giving you visibility into what you have on premises from a hardware and software perspective. And there's no cost to you for going through this process. And that process takes generally around 4 to 6 weeks. It can be shorter, it can be longer, depending on your specific needs. So that's what the OLA is at a high level. Maybe we can talk through, Chris, just what your process, what the OLA process has been like for you and your organization.
Sure.
At a high level.
Sure, and you touched on some of the points that definitely affected us. One of the things that going through the OLA process was we didn't realize that we were over provisioning our VMs, and not knowing that it would hurt us. So think of it like this: we were buying ESX servers 1, 2, 3, 4. We got it up to like 12, and we're still buying more. We're paying for that up cost front now, and we're not leveraging the resource capacity to the most effective way, which the OLA has introduced to us. So now we're like, oh my God, if right now we did nothing, the best approach is to reduce the resources on individual VMs. But in light of security and resiliency and being able to scale out the infrastructure, our current solution doesn't give us that capability. So we're looking to leverage AWS on our production platform, and even look into our SQL Server licensing that we have to reduce the cost and to be able to immediately spin up these resources into the cloud and provision them to be high availability, to be resilient, to be redundant. And I get all of that, and it's a cost that that can scale, can scale automatically, can reduce automatically. And with the current infrastructure that I have right now, it's all pay up front, and I can't scale back. It's a much harder process for me to remove that hardware. And looking at it from the business line and looking at it from our IT leadership team, one of their initiatives is not just to continue spend, but be strategic in the way we manage our own budgets. So that's my experience. And we've had some issues like because our environment is very complicated. So we ran into some obstacles, but very minimal. It was straightforward. But what I really have to say is that I wasn't alone. I wasn't alone. And I was happy to have Scott at my side and his team. And I had other people from CloudChomp who was eager to help me and make sure that I overcame these obstacles. And even from the business side, where I'm all technical, so we could have a technical conversation for hours. And if we go into the finances and more of the C-level discussions, CloudChomp and Scott were very helpful to educate me and be able to present these numbers back to management and say, hey, look, this is why we're doing this. This is why this cloud strategy makes sense to us. This is why the OLA will help us. So that's been the overall experience for us.
Great. Thank you for that. And just at a high level, can you kind of run through what that environment looks like today,
Mhm.
especially, from a Windows perspective, what you guys are running?
Yeah, from a high level, we took an assessment of all of our environment, everything that's in a data center. We have over 700 servers that we maintain, VMs that we maintain. We have about 14 to 16 ESX hosts. We have, the storage backend. We're moving from a NetApp to a pure storage. We have a SQL physical cluster environment, and basically CloudChomp was able to crunch all of that information and numbers and pull out the data. And I literally, one of the things that caught my attention was I took out my bill that I'm paying for, and I took out the CloudChomp, and it was pretty exact. It got it really close, and I was surprised that it got it that close. And through its wizard, I was able to look at over provisioned VMs and look at some of the ways I could reduce the cost. And I'm sure that if we did a lift and shift and put everything into the cloud, I'm sure we could save about anywhere between 20 or 30% of our infrastructure costs. And not to mention the delay of, like, we're going through the entire summer migrating an entire NetApp cluster of 300 terabytes, and that's a bit of a nightmare for us. And we want to make things quicker, faster, because that's the way business works. So
Mhm.
that's some of my thoughts on that.
Perfect. And you mentioned one surprise was how accurate your on-prem cost models were from CloudChomp. Were there any other surprises that came up as you went through the OLA?
So the surprises that came up were mostly around over provision resources and how, like, close the OLA came to the pricing. And then from there, we were able to build, like, I didn't, but the financial team built some financial models to do forecasting of what the growth would be in the spending. And I think if we did nothing, we wouldn't be aware of these things. And by just going through the process, and mind you, it was free. Like, everything that I mentioned, the provider, the connection, going through the process at no cost, which is fantastic. And there's also incentive for us to move into the cloud because AWS is co-sponsoring and helping us, and we're moving more effectively on that. But the OLA process has been an eye opener, and I thought we had to pay some cost behind it, but it was zero to little cost.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
And you'd mentioned some minor technical snafus. I mean, there just is a reality with this process that you are oftentimes
Yeah.
installing some kind of collector, right? So that way you can get that really granular, high fidelity data to then make
Yep.
those utilization based optimizations.
Yep.
Of course, tools can ingest flat file
Yep.
utilization metrics that you have, but oftentimes you're going to be installing the tooling. Um, any technical issues you want to walk through just to help kind of set the stage for other customers what they could expect?
Sure. So you could put the collector to gather information, and that you might want to use perhaps on a SQL. But we ultimately decided not to use. We just downloaded an OVF file, which was a collector agent, and we did SNMP to capture all that information into that one collector. So the technical issues was more on our side of security, networking on our side that we had to overcome. As far as getting the collector running and up and green, it was pretty straightforward. It wasn't too complicated.
Hmm. And the team was there to answer security questions, process related
Ex-
questions, et cetera. Okay.
exactly. They were literally a phone call away for us to be able to mitigate any issues that we encountered.
Perfect. Thank you. And again, I invite the folks on the call. We are here for you. If you have any questions that are coming to mind, technical issues that you're trying to foresee, or really anything, please do just post those in the chat, and we'll be more than happy to address them. In terms of kind of trying to proactively address those questions that you might be having, Chris, do you have any advice or recommendations for those who are thinking about going through this process or about to embark on this process?
Yeah, I would definitely suggest if you want to start this process, I would say align yourself with like EagleDream, who have been through this process multiple times. I reach out to AWS to read up on information, but just go through it fast, I would say, because even if you do nothing, let's say you decide not to go with AWS, just the going through the motion of this exercise has shown what we can do to overcome obstacles, and what issues like over provisioning VMs we weren't aware of. So I would definitely suggest, definitely work with like a partner who has the experience to be able to understand what a migration process looks like, understands licensing costs, because at the end of the day, we are paying for the license regardless. But if we could be more strategic, you know, working with EagleDream and working with AWS in tandem to be able to make it easier instead of slowly going through the process.
Hmm. So get started sooner.
Yeah, sooner.
Leverage EagleDream, leverage your resource at AWS.
Yeah, of course you may run into like issues like fail fast to succeed, that way immediately you can reap the benefits from it.
Perfect. And I know that you had mentioned that you guys are kind of still going through this process. In no way is your Windows to AWS migration journey over. But can you speak a little bit to outcomes that have resulted from conducting the OLA or projected outcomes?
Yeah, so in the process that, look, we were literally migrating stuff into the cloud, but the pandemic hit and our whole strategy, even for our infrastructure team, changed, and we had to, pull back, process the PPP. Over 100,000 loans were processed through our infrastructure, plus the automation behind that. Now, after the summer, we're now trying to get back into the swing of our migration. We're strategically looking at possibly leveraging RDS databases on AWS to lower the costs for us on a SQL side of the house. We're looking at certain application stacks to be remodernized or at modernization, just to look at ways to. So it's definitely ignited a fire within the organization.
Hmm. Perfect. Thanks, Chris. And I guess I'll pass it over to you now then, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Clark. Thanks, Chris. Chris, maybe we could talk a little bit about how the OLA has helped with your Windows modernization activity that we're trying to undertake.
Sorry, you broke up there. How did my
Maybe we could talk for a minute about how we've used the OLA and the information coming out of Cloud Chomp around the Windows modernization work of getting you in a migration path to get off of Windows.
Absolutely. So in the beginning, I mentioned Cross River being technology forward, and we have applications that we leverage with our partner relationship, our channel partners. So one of the tasks that I had was defining the cost of that API. We wanted to find out, like, what's the database cost, what's the server cost, what's the infrastructure cost behind it. So one thing that this has shown us is that I can now break down the cost of the API for a specific product in Cross River and sort of work with you and AWS to figure out ways to refactor or reprovision that particular technology stack into the cloud and either reduce the cost, and I could grow it on scale. So now if I have 1,000 customers or 1,000,000 customers coming in, I could have auto scaling that will provision that environment at the cost that we can effectively provision that technology. And at the same time, this can go back to our sales and marketing team, and they know exactly how to price out what does our COS product cost, right? So it's a game changer, I would say.
Yeah, and so just a little bit of background for those listening. The activity we're doing is looking at how can we help how can we help Cross River move from a Windows IIS based .NET application to a .NET Core 3 Windows-based application that once you get to .NET Core 3, that opens up the ability to run on Linux. We know for a fact that if we can get a customer to go from Windows IIS to Linux servers, your cost is going to drop by a half. Once we can get somebody to Linux, then that opens up the world of containers for the customer. And containers has a lot of benefits, and we're seeing many, many customers make the move towards either purely serverless or containers. And containers can yet again save you more cost because containers don't require as much CPU, memory, and things like that to run. They scale faster than even Linux servers can scale. And so this is an activity we're helping the bank with right now. And again, when we can show what the current cost basis is, we can help the bank understand what is the ROI going to be on making this move. And it starts to become really compelling. And we're even working with another organization that, like, just on one application alone, they're going to see over $10,000 a month cost savings by getting to Linux containers for a Windows-based application. So great, thank you both. With that, we'd love to see if the audience has any questions for any of us. Let's see.
Scott, it looks like we do have a question. I can read it out to you if that makes it easier. Thanks for the question. It's around licensing. So for Chris, and I think Clark and Scott, you both can add some color here too. How did you find the licensing analysis between Microsoft and the transition to AWS, whether you brought your own or used an AWS included license?
So we're of the mindset that some of it we'll be bringing on our own and some of it we'll be using from the AWS cloud. So let me break it up into one is our infrastructure stack, which we're probably bringing into AWS, and we're looking at the software assurance, how we can leverage that. The other area that we're looking at is since everybody's remote, desktop as a service. So we're leveraging our Office 365 licensing, and we're looking at I think it's Amazon AWS Workspace to be able to provision desktops into the cloud so we can eliminate buying a hardware and OS cost and couple it into a virtualized desktop as a service. So those are two of the things that are determining our factor for us, which areas of technology we're moving into the cloud. Yeah, SQL is one too, so.
Clark, could you talk about some of the other customers you've worked with, Leon? Maybe a customer has an EA agreement, and some of the other things that a partner and AWS can do to help with licensing.
Yep, absolutely. So we all know that SQL Server, especially SQL Server Enterprise licenses, are expensive. In fact, they might be one of the most expensive licenses that your organization buys, and that oftentimes the cost of licensing itself will exceed the cost of your compute, of your straight up EC2 resources. So licensing is very important, and it's also important to take advantage of whatever existing entitlements you might have through your existing EA. And what the OLA is really helpful in doing for you is identifying how many of those licenses you will actually need once these workloads are moved over and optimized in AWS. So that way you can plan for your next EA renewal. Perhaps you can reduce the number of licenses that you need to purchase, or it can help you identify what you might want to incrementally buy in terms of license included EC2 instances. But really the OLA is about helping you maximize what your organization already has, what you guys have already paid for, while maintaining compliance in AWS.
Yep. Thanks. Courtney, any other questions that have come in?
Yeah, another question that we have geared towards Chris. Other than the OLA, did you consider any other options or any other pathways, or was the OLA always something that was of interest to you for conducting for your team?
So initially, when we started this process, we weren't thinking about OLA. We were like, let's just go into AWS. But immediately we found we were running into obstacles, and we realized that we weren't doing it right. I knew something was missing, and immediately when I voiced my concern to John and to Scott, they immediately understood my dilemma, and they presented the OLA and the framework to approach how to move our infrastructure into the cloud. And believe me, if not knowing this, we probably would have not moved forward, and it would have been a disaster for us to move into AWS. Just that little experience there would have been nerve-wracking, and our executive IT leadership would have pulled us back. But going through the OLA process, understanding, and bringing into light the different challenges, it gives us a more of an authoritative leader now, that I can say, hey, look, this is why we're moving it, and this is how it justifies the business use case.
Great. And is there anything you would do differently or would have done differently, looking back at the experience?
Anything I would have done differently, or let's see, definitely call EagleDream sooner than later. Definitely, my biggest recommendation is definitely, if you're interested in moving into the cloud, look at the OLA process, because at a minimum it starts giving you a framework of how to position yourself and how to go back to your management team and be able to justify some of the costs. And if you're unsure of where to go, how to approach this, or even unclear of any of the topic, my recommendation is definitely to reach out to Clark or reach out to Scott to give you guidance, to give you to help you develop your vision and idea. And that's really the most important part of it.
Great, perfect. Those are all the questions that we have so far. If anyone else has anything that they'd like to put in the chat box, feel free to do so. This was a great session. I think, Scott, we just have a couple minor things that I think you wanted to share to finish things off.
Yep, thank you, Courtney. Chris and Clark, thank you for your time today as well. And for everybody that took the time out of their busy day to join us, we had very good discussion and some good questions from the audience. As we wrap things up from the session today, we'd like to put an offer out to those of you in attendance. We would like to offer the ability for you to schedule an OLA engagement with EagleDream. We will bring one of our AWS ambassadors. We have 3 AWS ambassadors on staff that can talk to you and start to lead you through, what does it look like to do the OLA process? What does it look like, as you start down your specific AWS journey, and really get you to the point that you can start to evaluate what the TCO is. What is your TCO on-premise? What is going to be your TCO potentially inside of AWS? So please reach out to us at the URL below. There's a special landing page there, just at eagledream.com/OLA. And again, sign up, and we're here to help you. We love working with AWS. We will bring AWS to the table as part of this. Cloud Chomp, TSO, Cloudomize. We'll work with AWS to identify the right tools. We'll also, help you guys with the longer term as you start to make your move into AWS. How do you continue to monitor your spend going forward with another partner that we have in Cloud Checker? And if you want to understand sort of the 3-headed beast of Cloud Chomp, EagleDream, and Cloud Checker, there is a video from a previous webinar out on our YouTube channel that you can check out to understand how sort of the flow of the cloud journey works, of doing a TCO with Cloud Chomp, EagleDream helping you migrate, and then using Cloud Checker to guarantee that you stay secure, compliant, and you're tracking your expenses moving forward. So lastly, if there are any further questions or you'd like to reach out to us separately, please do. Use that URL, reach out to me on any social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, and we're happy to connect afterwards. So again, Chris, Clark, thank you very much. Courtney, thank you for moderating, and everybody have a great day.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.